What is the essence of Judaism?
The essence of Judaism, big question. The essence of Judaism is that we were all created for a purpose, a godly purpose. And that is to share this world with everyone else and to make this world a place where God feels comfortable. As Jews, specifically, we were instructed to be God's ambassadors to the world. You've heard the term, the people of the book, the Jewish people. God gave us laws, but we're not here to keep those laws necessarily for ourselves. We're here to share the beauty and the values of Judaism with others. Specifically, integral laws like honesty, justice, tolerance for all people. What's always intrigued me is one of the interesting laws of Judaism is that we don't encourage other people to convert to our religion. In fact, traditionally, if a person comes to a rabbi and says, I want to become a Jew, typically the rabbi will say, don't. He'll try to convince you not to. And it's not a game that he's playing. It's because we truly believe that every religion has a purpose in the world, and that's why God created multiple religions. And you should seek and serve God from your religion. If a person absolutely insists on becoming a Jew, we'll go ahead and convert them. But I think it's a very powerful statement because I think in many other religions, the idea is this is the truth, and unless you have my truth, you're not where you need to be. I think that says a lot for Judaism. I think we believe that God has a very big, open, spacious heart, and He has room in the world for everybody, and therefore so should we. So by being ambassadors to the world, we're supposed to teach the world about who God is, what He expects from us, the difference of evil versus good, light versus darkness, so that God feels comfortable in the world. And we do that through reaching out to others, through showing tolerance to others, being patient with others, extending love and reaching out to them. At the same time, the Torah is very clear about distinguishing between good versus evil. I think one of the fallacies that we unfortunately see today, and we see it amongst Jews as well, is this notion that everyone's good, everyone's beautiful. And yes, there is a beautiful part of everyone, but at the same time there is real evil in the world. And that needs to be pointed out and needs to be dealt with. So we can't just gloss over evil and say, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. It doesn't work like that. There's good and there's bad, and part of the Torah is identifying the good and punishing the bad. So by being ambassadors to the world at large, I think the Jewish people were given this global mission, really, of wherever they are, reaching out to the world, whether it's a Jew or a non-Jew, making them aware that there's a God in the world. In fact, there are 7 laws that God gave to all of mankind. They're known as the 7 universal laws of Noah that pertain to every single person in the world. And that's part of our mandate as Jews, is to teach Torah to the Jews, to teach the universal laws to everyone, and make sure that everyone knows that there is an eye that records everything, and there's an ear that records everything. It's kind of easier to understand Judaism nowadays than it ever was before, because you're sitting here filming me with a video camera, recording everything I'm saying. So if we can have that notion, that idea that up in heaven there is a God who is recording every one of my movements, and one day I'm going to be answerable for that. So it's not a free ride. It's not make merry today and tomorrow, whatever it is. Whatever I say today is being recorded by someone, and so I better make sure to do what's right and what's just today. That's a very powerful lesson of Judaism, and sadly, terribly lacking in the world today, especially in our education system, where obviously you can't mention God too much in schools. But the idea that children grow up today without an idea that every action is accounted for, and it's not a free ride, it's a terrible thing. So I think as Jews, we have a responsibility to teach the world there's a God, and everyone counts, everyone has a place.
Jews are supposed to be the chosen people, yet after having such a long history of persecution at the hands of just about everyone, how can Jews maintain their faith in God?
That's a very good question. I think that your question really answers itself. that's precisely why we have that faith, because it defies nature and logic to understand why we're still here after everything we've been through over 3,000 years, 4,000 years of our history. So the mere fact that we're still here today, the fact that the tiny country of Israel, which is surrounded by so many larger countries with hundreds of millions of people who would wish to destroy it every single day, is still around, that in itself gives us the faith that there's a God in the world.
How do you feel about modern Judaism?
God has asked us to make the world a home for Him, so that He feels comfortable here. And it's our task to utilize whatever tools come our way to make this world a comfortable place for Him. So whether we're dealing with the Dark Ages, or the Stone Age, or the Light Age, it doesn't really matter, or the 21st century, whatever it is that we have, we will use it in order to make this world, as the biblical words are, a dwelling place for God. So God feels comfortable resting in the world. The fact is, I think it's probably a lot easier to be a Jew today than it ever was before. If anything, technology has helped us tremendously in all areas, whether it's being able to have kosher food, which in the old days might have been a challenge for someone. Nowadays, thanks to packaging and refrigeration, canned foods, it's not difficult to travel anywhere in the world to take along kosher food. Similarly, in any other ritual tradition that we have, the internet, for example, has brought Judaism so much closer to millions of people around the world. You can be posted in Antarctica, and you can ask questions of a rabbi in New York. So if anything, the modern world, if I understand your question correctly, has made Judaism a lot closer knit, brought it a lot closer to home for all of us, and brought the world a lot closer together.
As a rabbi, what are your views on some of the current world problems, like the turmoil in the Middle East and the uprising in Egypt?
I think it's challenging and it's sad to see the turmoil throughout the world, no matter where it is, whether it's in the Middle East or it's terrorism or it's problems locally in our own state, our own country. I think one of the fundamentals of Judaism is, in Hebrew we say tzedek tirdof, which means one has to pursue justice, honesty, integrity. Anytime there's an absence of justice and integrity, you automatically invite problems. So whether it's between one country and another country, or between you and your next door neighbor, someone's going to end up suffering. The world's problems are very, very scary. The tools that we have at our hands today to annihilate people, it was 60 years ago we saw what happened in Germany, which at the time was probably one of the most advanced countries in the world. Certainly in science and technology and in medicine, Germany was ahead of most other countries, and yet was able to perpetrate one of the greatest evils, if not the greatest evil, of the history of mankind. What's going on in the world today, what's going on in the Middle East, it's definitely scary. It doesn't lend itself to help us really turn this world into a godly place. At the same time, the Jewish people have always believed that everything that happens in the world happens, believe it or not, for a godly purpose. I know that's a big statement to make, and it's very difficult for many people to swallow. One of the most difficult things is the understanding that nothing happens out of the realm of God. Whatever happens in the world, God is in control of. So even when evil is perpetrated by mankind, if God did not want it to happen, it wouldn't be taking place. That doesn't in any way exempt anyone or give you a carte blanche and say, all right, you're not responsible for your actions. Certainly you are, and you have to be punished if you do something bad. At the same time, it doesn't exonerate God either. He's culpable as far as we Jews are concerned for whatever goes on in the world. To the point that when something happens, let's forget global problems, let's take something much smaller. Somebody smashes into you on the freeway for reckless driving. And you're obviously upset. You just smashed up your brand new sports car. And that's because he was reckless. And you're going to sue him and take him to court and take him to the cleaners for whatever he's worth. And you need to do that because you're entitled to be, paid back for whatever damages you encountered. At the same time, Judaism teaches that there's a question that you have to pose to God, and that is, God, why did that happen to me? Why did you allow that guy to smash into me? In other words, every encounter in the world, everything I see, everything I hear, every experience I have, there's a godly message in there for me as well. And if I go through life without realizing that, I'm really missing what God is trying to send me. So if it's a global problem, we need to be able to find a silver lining in it. And what's going to happen in Egypt, by the time you show this to your class, I think we might have a better picture than what's happening there today, because it changes by the hour, unfortunately. Difficult to say. We all hope and pray, of course, that the outcome will be positive. Will it? History has told us, unfortunately, that not all revolutions end up good, regardless of what the people are protesting about. So I think it remains to be seen. I think the consequences can be very grave, but it's like you asked earlier, we Jews have been through a lot. And if there's anything we know and we believe in very firmly is that no matter what happens, we're going to be here to tell the tale tomorrow. So.
With the world becoming one community and freedom of choice being one of the most important values in modern society, how do you see generations come to preserve their Jewish heritage?
That's an interesting question. I think that what I experience, what I see myself in this community, is that the larger the world gets, the more people are coming back home for real values. The more products Apple introduces, I'm not picking on Apple, but the more our life becomes uncomplicated, the more people are coming back saying, you know what, life is too complicated. Give me some good old-fashioned hardcore values. Teach me some Torah. So I think, if anything, it's true on the one hand that we are exposed to more now than ever before. And the fact they're crediting the revolution in Egypt to Facebook. They say without Facebook that would have happened. So you're right, on the one hand, tremendous exposure to religions around the world, to all different types of isms and thoughts from all over the place. At the same time, at the end of the day, when we look ourselves in the mirror, we look at our children and we ask, what are we giving our children? Somebody once said to me, I'm so busy giving my child what I never had growing up, that I've forgotten to give them what I did have growing up, which are real values. Family, time spent together with the family around the table, talking to each other, without text messaging, without IMing each other while the family is talking to each other. Those are fundamental Jewish values. So, examples, Jewish holidays, the Shabbat, every Friday night we get together. Our families spend hours together. And we turn off electricity, technology. And there's nothing like that. I don't understand how people survive without a Sabbath, without a Shabbos, because it's just, there's no end to the week, there's no beginning. You never turn it off. And you go crazy. The greatest gift, I think, that God gave the Jewish people was the ability to literally free themselves from the world around us. Somebody once said to me that whenever he wants to get away with his family, he just goes up to Big Bear. And I said, just think of yourself. You have to drive 3 hours to Big Bear, pack up the car on the way back, drive down 3 hours. By the time you get home, you're exhausted. Jewish person every Friday, from Friday sundown to Saturday night, takes 25 hours to just dedicate to his family, to God, to his religion. And nothing else matters. No TV, no internet, no radio, no telephone. Nothing. And it's amazing what happens, what a transformation takes place in those 25 hours. You connect with yourself, you connect with people you love the most, with your friends. So if anything, I think the more the world becomes global and big and we have freedom of choice, the more we're coming back to recognizing and appreciating the real values of the Torah.
What's the hardest part about being a rabbi?
For me personally, if I think of myself as an ambassador of God, or a representative, and I try to present God in a just, humane way, the most difficult thing for me is having to look someone in the eye who, God forbid, just lost a loved one or has a child in the hospital, try to explain to them why that's happening. So I think death and illness, tragedy, is the most difficult thing for any rabbi. Especially, it's difficult for anyone, but especially for a rabbi, because people look at you and they go, you're supposed to talk for God. Why is this happening? This is a good person. Why is he suffering? Go ahead, Rabbi, tell me. And I don't have an answer. And I can talk philosophy and theology all day. That's great until you're the person in the bed. That's when philosophy doesn't make any more sense to you. So we can have nice discussions about this stuff, but the reality is when you have to face a child and console him for a difficult loss, the most difficult thing in the world.